this morning is the last BZ principle of the fall semester or even of 2020. So let's hope that we end 2020 on a high note, and our vision for 2021 is a stabler 2021 than what 2020 has been. But again, we've been going through servant leadership, and I've got it on my other screen here. So if you see me look to the other side, that's just because of that. You know, servant leaders first and foremost seek to be mission driven and vision driven, but also they don't forget about the customer. So really, I think a lot of times I had the opportunity to talk to Mindy and Brad just a few days ago. And one of the things that comes out about customer service and about, you know, just servant leadership is that you can't promise something if you can't deliver it. And I think a lot of times we want to promise things because they sound good, but then we can't actually deliver them. And I think that's not servant leadership. That's actually very selfish leadership, because I could sit here and promise you the moon, but the problem is if I can't fulfill that, I'm not serving you. So one of the things is understanding that servant leadership is not about me. It's about the other person. It's about the organization. It's about what we get to do. So I think one of the things as we end up our first couple, the four things of servant leadership, we've looked at sacrificial, we've looked at effective, we've looked at responsive, and today we look at visionary leaders. And when you think of a visionary leader, the couple people that come to my mind is Steve Jobs. A lot of you have, I have my iPhone right here. You know, you think of Steve Jobs and the guy that was visionary to say, look, we're going to take music and first of all, put it into an iPod. And then we're going to take an iPod and make it with a phone. And we're going to have a device that every single one of us carry today. Even if you carry the other version, the Android version, you still have something that probably came out of what Steve Jobs was trying to create back several years ago, decades ago. So when we talk about visionary leadership, we all want that. And I'm going to make a statement right here, and I hope by the end of this, you accept it, is that we are all visionary leaders. We're all visionary leaders. It just, we don't always see it as quick as other people. So I want to walk through that a little bit, but here's some traits of a visionary leader. First and foremost, they believe in the organization's purpose. This can even be devised for friendships. I believe in my friendships. So this is the purpose of my friendship. So I have belief in it. I have awareness of it. I have buy-in. I have ownership, so that when I have a friend like John Wamble, who works in production services, I'm looking at him going, John, this is the purpose of our friendship. It's been long-standing since the 1990s, probably since each of you were born, besides Lauren. But the whole idea of it is, John and I have this friendship, and the vision is, hey, how do we continue this even when we get old and gray and not working at Cedarville? Our friendship is that lifelong friendship. So first and foremost, you got to believe in the organization. Also, as a visionary leader, you got to imagine and dream. You got to have an imagination and dream and go, what can be, or what if, or what's next, or what can we do? And the last one is you got to be willing to change. So those are the three things. You got to believe in the organization, you've got to be able to imagine and dream, and you've got to be able to change or to pivot. So I'm going to give you a statement about visionary leadership, and then we're going to break this down this morning. We're going to have plenty of time for questions. So let me read it to you. Visionary servant leaders have awareness of others, the past, and the current situation. Visionary servant leaders have insight to see areas for growth and also potential for the future. Now, awareness and insight are mutually beneficial. You need both, but without a plan, it cannot become a reality. So think of it kind of like algebra. I'm sorry that I'm doing algebra at 10 a.m. on your Christmas vacation, but think about it like algebra is that in the brackets is this idea of awareness and insight, and you're adding those two together. They're mutually beneficial. And outside of that is the idea of the word plan, because without the plan, the awareness, the insight, yeah, that might be cool and everything, but without a plan, how does it become a reality? So really, you know, when I think of visionary leaders, I think that what is your visionary response rate? Meaning I said that each of you at the beginning were visionary leaders, but what's your response rate? Are you a quick responder, or are you like, oh, it's 2020 is hindsight, you see it after it's done? I think we all need to get better on our visionary response rate. So I think of the eye doctor. I don't know about you, but I've gone to a lot of eye doctors. My wife has a genetic eye disease, and so we are at eye doctors a lot. And she has, even with corrected vision, 20, I think it's 200, 300. So she is what was called legally blind. She doesn't have her central vision. So when I think of an eye doctor, one of the things that happens is when you think of vision, you're like, that's your ability to see. So when I would go to the eye doctor, I remember a story when I was a student at Cedarville. I was in Alfred Auditorium in the very back, because that's the only place you sit in Alfred Auditorium when you're in class there. And I was like, I can't see the board. I can't see it. So I went to the professor afterwards. It was an overhead. That's like when they used to use overhead projectors. And I said, Dr. Matson, I think it's blurry a little bit. And he's like, you need to go get your eyes checked. So I'm like, all right, well, this old guy told me to get my eyes checked. I need to show respect. Went and got my eyes checked. They dilated, they did everything. That's when they go, hey, is number 1 better? Is number 2 better? How about now? How about now? It's like over and over again. And it's like they're trying to trick you to see like which one is better. And I came out of that she goes like, hey, you should be flying planes. You have 2015 vision. So it's like, okay, tell your professor next time he needs to adjust the overhead. And I'm like, I ain't doing that to Dr. Matson. But the whole idea of vision is that you either have so the first number 20 is like, that's your clarity. That's, hey, where's your clarity coming from? So like we all have 20 something vision. The other one is the distance. So where does that come? So for Danielle, she's got to be really close to something off to the side so she can see it. Me, I can see it from a little bit more. Now that my eyes have gotten older and I have to have glasses and I have stigmatisms and all that, it's a little bit different. But think about visionary servant leaders is the same way. We each know what could come. Some of us just see it really quick. I have one of these things, like I look every time that I make a decision, I'm looking at not how it's going to affect this year, but how it's going to affect the next 5 years. And so I'm looking at, okay, we're making this decision for a leave, or we're making this decision for T&L or an alt night, or even getting started. How is this going to affect the next 5 years? Perfect example is Campus Christmas. We made the decision to decorate all of our campus. Guess what? I have a feeling that that's going to be the new normal because people loved it. So the whole idea is understanding that if you start something, what could happen? So that's part of being visionary. And I think some of you might be in the place where it's like you don't see it till the very end. You've got to be right up in front of you, and then it clicks for you. So how do we increase our visionary response rate? So let me walk you through a couple things. Awareness. As a visionary servant leaders, you got to be aware of the people around you. I know you guys are going to be shocked that I'm going to quote Walt Disney right now, but I'm going to. When he built Disneyland, which is still closed, and I've heard rumors that they might want to move to Texas. So, Mummy, you might get a Disneyland. Who knows? But the idea of it is that when he built Disneyland, he says you could build the most wonderful and creative place in the world. It takes people to make it a reality. So visionary leaders, first and foremost, have awareness of other people, their needs, their wants, their attitudes, their perceptions. Okay, you get what we're going right now. I'm bringing in customer experience a little bit. You also need to know what your people's dreams and plans are. So when I sit down with people like team members and I'm like, hey, what are your dreams for the future? So what would you like to do with this? When Kristen Craig worked for us, or Christian Ziegler, who's now the Imagineer, I said, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to be a Disney Imagineer. Like, okay, do everything possible to get there. Jake, I think of you. I'm Jacob Allenson. I think of you. You want to work Universal, Comcast, anything that we can do in our vision is to give Jake those opportunities for those developments that makes it better for him and for the organization. So it's awareness of others. Awareness of the past. As a visionary leader, you can't just look. A lot of you are going to get jobs in a few years. You can't just look at, hey, I want to be a visionary leader right now. What's going on? You got to look at the past. You got to look at the culture. You got to look at what's worked. You got to look at what's not worked. You got to look at where they failed, where they had success, but you've got to look at the past. And you also have to look at the current situation. So for awareness, I'm looking at people, I'm looking at the past, and I'm looking at the current situation. Then I move to, what is that insight? Where can we grow? What can we do? What if we added a band to TNL and it added all these cool things like Rufus did this year? That's the idea of visionary. The idea now is, like, as Rufus has been working on, how do you make that consistent for the next 3 to 4 years? How do you make sure that we're not setting something up? And Rufus has done great with this, but how do we make sure we're not setting something up that next year, once Rufus is gone, it's done? So how do we make sure that things are always going? So you've got that awareness of others, the awareness of the past, the awareness of the current situation. You've got areas for growth and then potential for the future. You put those together. That's the mess that you have inside those quotations or those brackets. Now you add a plan. So for me, for getting started, when we added that plan for getting started, it was like, we've got to have a touch list. We've got to have this drive-through thing. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We see, okay, what's worked? What's our awareness of people? They want to go through the line quickly. What's the awareness of the past? Getting started's got a great experience. We don't want to kill the fun. What about the current situation? Well, we got COVID. We can't touch people. So that was the awareness. The insight was, man, if we could speed things up and not be in the field house, it's going to save us $10,000 a year. So there's the insight there. You put it together, you put a plan together, and now you've got a vision. So for us as a group, our vision is, okay, how do we make sure we strive for excellence and we provide extraordinary effort? That's what we want to be as a group. So in understanding that, we're developing this plan, this idea of collaborating, this idea of communicating, this idea of implementing, following the plan, assessing it, and then doing it all over again. You've got to think of yourself as a visionary leader. If you're setting the vision, so I think of Jake Johnson right now, he's right in front of me. If you're setting the vision for you and Abby, you're setting the vision for SGA, you have to be the chief communicator. That's your role. I've got to communicate that vision all the time. So one of the things that you'll see that I do usually in every email, how do I pull out BZ? How do I make sure that you guys are aware that we strive for excellence? We provide extraordinary effort. This is who we are and where we are going. You've got to do the same thing with your group. Maggie, I think of a leave. You're going to have a vision soon. You've got to be able to be that chief communicating officer, that chief repeater. It's like, that's your job. You're going to feel like, I feel like I'm treating people like teenagers. You're not. People follow vision. I think another quote by Steve Jobs was, when people start to fall in love with their jobs, it's not because they really come to work and they're bored with it. They're just compelled by this great vision, and it's just fun for them. I think that's what Steve Jobs, one of his quotes that came out when they were developing the iPhone. It's like people were so caught up in it, it wasn't like going to work. So the whole idea of being a visionary leader is you're either a visionary leader like me, and I probably do it a little bit too extreme. I'm always looking 4 to 5 to 10 years down the road. Or you might be the visionary leader that just like, man, I don't see it until it's right in front of me. How do I make sure that I don't do it too far? And how do you make sure that we can somewhere be in that middle where we're seeing a vision far enough down the road that it's benefiting people? It's benefiting the people you work for. It's benefiting the people that you work with, benefiting the people that work with you. So a visionary leader, let's think about this. They have awareness, they have insight, and then they make a plan. I think each of you can be visionary leaders. And if you can be, you're going to be people in your organizations. You're going to be friends and you're going to be church members. You're going to be family members. You're going to be spouses that always are not satisfied with, okay, this is what we've done in the past, but if I want my relationship to be awesome with Danielle in the future, how am I viewing that and keeping that as my vision? And I'm investing in that every day. Last thing I'm going to tell you before I open it up for questions is the idea of, I want to retire one day. I think I should retire and drive boats at Disney, and you guys can come down and visit me and I'll drive you around in a boat. But the whole idea is I want to retire one day, but that's not going to happen if I don't invest in my retirement. If I don't put money into my retirement today, it's not going to happen. The same thing with your vision. So I gave the example of Danielle. My vision for my relationship with Danielle, our vision is that we're more in love with each other 40 years down the road. So the whole idea is if I'm not investing in that today, like telling her I love you and making sure that I'm spending time with her and listening and going on dates, if I'm not investing today, it's not going to wake up like at 39 years, 364 days and go, hey, are we more in love with each other? Just like I'm not going to be able to retire if I'm not putting money aside now. I'm not going to wake up the day before retirement and go, well, I hope I have enough money to retire. It's all about investing. And that's what the vision does for you. You have to have a vision for the future so that it can compel you to work hard today and to invest today. That's kind of what visionary leadership is. So I'm going to read it one more time. Excuse me. Visionary servant leaders have awareness of others, the past, the current situations. Visionary servant leaders also have insight to see areas of growth and potential for the future. Now, awareness and insight are mutually beneficial, but the plan is really what makes it a reality. So I ask you, where is your visionary response rate this morning? Are you way out in the future, or are you just wait till it happens right in front of you? I think we need to be somewhere in the middle. We need to be balanced and have a good visionary response rate.